There. This is going to be a new series that actually I should be completely done with the entire series by the time you see this. So if this dropped, that means the whole series is done for better or worse. And what the series is going to be is the process of developing a plan, doing the POC, deciding whether the project is a go or no go, and then doing all the devlogs and releasing the game and then doing a retro. And so if you're watching this, all of that is done. Now, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's going to be either I did the plan, I did all the milestones, I did the POC, and the POC turned out to not be super fun, or there was like some major, problem with it, and so I decided to just give to shelve the project overall. Maybe I'll have to come up with a better design, or maybe I decided that it was too much, too complex, too large, and that was also a great reason to shelve it before actually starting development. So today we're going to go over the plan that I have, the milestones, talk about some of the highlights of doing a plan, maybe some of the sort of the good, bad, and ugly of planning, and then talk about why I'm doing this and what kicked it all off. Uh, so so either way, I don't know the outcome yet, so it's kind of exciting. But so here we go. So the project's going to be simple, and a big part of that is just that I've been working on really large scope projects that have been 6 months or more. I've got a whole backlog of unfinished projects that end up just basically grinding to a halt because of content, right? Like I'll start going, okay, now I need to finish the 4 other levels plus all the monsters and the bosses, and I'm always picking up survival likes and RPGs and all these other things that are always just insane projects for me to even start. And in recognizing that I have this pattern, I'm trying to fix it, and that's what this is all about. Is like, how do I go about fixing it? Well, smaller iterations, more planning, more certainty, uh, picking projects that are really more aligned with solo development. And so that's what we're trying to do here. The project that I picked is going to be just basically a simple top-down space shooter with asteroids, with some enemies, with I guess scaling difficulty and swarms. So it's going to play a little bit like a vampire survivor. Like, well, you're going to be dealing with swarms of enemies, but you're also going to be trying to mine resources, and then with those resources, you're going to extract, get out of the asteroid field, and get some credits for those resources, and then upgrade your ship and your base and some other things. And then there's your loop, is that you just keep doing that till you get to higher tiered upgrades, and then you could start submitting high scores. So pretty straightforward. I'm not like I say here, it's not going to be a banger of any kind, but I've got some personal project goals that I want to accomplish. We'll get into those in just a second. Um, and so what we can expect, we have our kickoff video here, and then we'll get into a few topics, and then we have a cut video, which we're going to do a couple interesting exercises. We're going to go through and cut all the major features one at a time, and then ask ourselves, what happens to the game when I do that? If I cut the player's ship, what happens? If I cut the base, what happens? What would then need to happen? So the player doesn't have a base to go to, what happens now? Maybe they go to HQ or whatever. So that's actually a really fun exercise to do. Highly recommend it, especially if you're in the early stages of design. But then we're also going to do another cut exercise where we're going to cut the project down from the 120 days that I've estimated down to 60, and so that's going to be some major hard cuts, and I'm not thrilled about that because I want to release something that's fun and interesting to play. And the more you cut, the less it feels like that's going to happen. But that's a big part of my goals, is the right size project. So we're going to do it. The next video after that is going to be the POC effort. So I'm going to do about a week-long POC just to make sure the fun is there and that there's no major concerns or problems. And then from that, we'll have the go, no go. And then from that, we'll potentially, if the project is a go, we'll have weekly summary videos kind of summarizing the good, bad, and ugly of how my plan is going, plus whatever feature development I've done. And we'll be showing kind of how the project is shaping up. And then, so that'll be anywhere from 6 to 12 or so sessions, depending on my cuts. And then we'll do a retrospective at the end where we'll release the game, talk about how the plan did, and maybe what retrospectively I would change about my planning and the approach, and maybe even talk about what's the next project, that I'm going to try to do this with. Will I try to build on top of my existing systems and components that I've made? Or will I completely switch gears and try to do a plan that brings back one of my older projects, tries to bring it back to life? Um, so that'll be interesting. So, okay. So um, let's take a look at to plan or not to plan. I'm not going to go deep, so you can feel free to pause this if you want to read a little bit more of some of my thoughts, comments. But what I do recognize is that a plan does not, no matter how big a plan gets, no matter how detailed, there's no direct correlation between that and the success of your project. You have these huge, AAA companies that have hundreds of people, massive, huge plans, and they release bombs all the time. So, in knowing that, we know that a plan is all about helping to achieve as much clarity as you can with your game design. It's helping you to speed along the process of development, so you're not designing and developing at the same time, which can end up in a lot of looping, re-architecture, refactoring. We really want to just take off our design hats and put on our dev hats and go. And then once we get an iteration done, stop and think about it, and then figure out what's the next plan. Do I continue or do I not continue, kind of a thing. So the other thing with plans, the good things is that it reduces a tremendous amount of friction. Like I just said, your minds are free to focus on the tasks versus worrying about like synergies and connecting future features that you haven't even figured out yet. And one of the other things is going to help you enter into a flow state a lot faster, because you're just going, okay, I'm cruising down this task list and everything is just working and connecting and making sense because I've already thought about all the nuance as part of the plan. But this allows you to actually go all out on a given feature or a given system. You don't have to half-ass the system in order to test it with other things. No, you know that it's going to work. You're pretty confident it's going to work with all these other things because you've thought through everything. So you can go 100% on a given feature, a given mechanic, adding all the polish, all the sounds, everything. And I think that's really powerful, so that you're not basically dragging a crappy looking project forward and never being happy with it or satisfied. And people that eventually go to playtest your gray box demo or your gray box POC, they're not going to be turned off by the fact that it's ugly and all of those things. So I think it's possible to do those things when you have a really solid plan. When you don't have a solid plan, then you have to sort of hedge your bets and only do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, get a thin slice working, and then test it. And then if it works out, then you invest in it. But so I'm thinking the smaller iterations allow you to go 100% all the way. So anyway, so that's enough on the plans. There's definitely a lot of upsides. We can go into, and I do have a ChatGPT sort of fun exercise for people to try. Something I did that led to all of this line of thinking, and I want to share that with you, so I don't want to forget to do that. Let's look at the game design document. This is it zoomed out. If we zoom in, got a list of basically just sort of topics to think about as part of the game design document. I grabbed, I think I started with a game design document, some of the section titles, and then took some from YouTubers that, had recommendations on what to think about and how to think about things. And then had some of my own ideas I threw in there, like the oohs, ahs, and ohs, and the WTFs. And so I'll just touch on a few of the more interesting topics. Elevator pitch, I think that one's important just to keep working on and refining and reducing so that you can, in fact, tell people what your game is without rambling on for 10 minutes trying to explain the nuance. And for a lot of these mashup games that we do, it requires a lot of explaining, and that should be a red flag that maybe this is too complex or too much. You should be able to, and you've probably heard this a ton before, but your one-liner, your elevator pitch should be super simple to explain and get somebody excited about it. And a lot of times you're just going to be referencing other things, like saying vampire survivor, like everyone can jump right to what that means and they can fill in all the blanks. So definitely work that one in. Risk designs or doubts. This one is probably the most important. It has provided the most value to have this column here, this section. And it's because I used it to take all the ideas that were flooding into my head, all the features, all the doubts. Like, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how the player is going to extract. What does that mean? And I would just jot the idea down, whatever it was, or whatever the doubt was. I would just jot it down. And the next sort of powerful thing I did was I didn't try to get to a refined decision too early. I just actually just started spewing all my thoughts down, or maybe I would leave it and go away for a couple hours or a day and then come back to whatever it was that was here. And then I go, okay, and let me fill it in. Um, but the powerful thing was I would just write down all my thoughts, no matter how messy. And in every single case, I would just keep writing and writing and writing. And then I would eventually come down to a decision. It was like, okay, this isn't needed. This is cut. Or this is exactly what I need. I know it now. And I would go add that task somewhere. And then I would delete this whole blob of text. And I did that for hundreds of things. I think the most powerful part about it was just removing the idea from my head and not trying to keep it there, not trying to chew on it in my head and figure out all the synergies. So that was a really important process. A lot of value. And personal goals, this one's also really important for sort of boxing your project, putting some boundaries on it. Like I want a really simple game. I want to find the fun up front, and I've done that with the plan. And I'm still working on it because by simple game, I have to take it from 120 days to 60 days, I think. And so I'm still working on fulfilling that goal. And then learn to design and develop reusable systems. A lot of my past projects, these bigger ones, I always go, I got this really cool mashup idea. I want to POC it. I'm doing the right thing there. And I go to POC it. I spend weeks and months on a POC, and I just keep kind of grinding over things. And my backlog is growing to 1,000 ideas. And I go, well, this is awesome. The POC is really shaping up. And if I just keep working on it, it's going to be really great. And it just becomes this endless long project that I just keep working on. It's like, it becomes out of my control. All of a sudden it's dragging me along. And I don't want to do that. And my systems become really cluttered, because I'm not designing systems out the gate. I'm designing, just shoving in a bunch of cool features, and then I'm trying to figure out what the right systems are to get the whole thing working. And so it's tons of refactoring, tons of rework, and I don't want to do that. So going forward, I want to create a plan that has a bunch of systems, and then I'm going to develop those systems 100%. And I feel like that's really going to unlock some of my potential, solve some of my bigger problems. And basically, the way I picture it is like a tractor pull contest where you're pulling a trailer, and the farther along you pull the trailer, the heavier it gets. And eventually, like in game dev, it gets so heavy that you can't make forward momentum anymore. And so I think that in having really clean systems, a really clean plan, you can keep the weight down so that you can get to the finish line. It's a pretty good visual, pretty good analogy. Let's see. So yeah, I covered all my goals. So I definitely thought this was worthwhile. Every one of your projects should probably fulfill some of your own personal goals, helping you grow, that kind of thing, helping you speed things up, improving things. Project constraints. So this was another good one. Really just thinking about ways to keep the project smaller so that it doesn't grow out of control. It helps you with your designs too. You don't waste a bunch of time thinking about features aren't going to fit into your constraints. So you don't even think about them, right? So that's helpful to define these up front and early. One of the things I thought was interesting was the time box. There's a couple different ways to do a time box. You can do it on, like, I'm going to only, whatever I can fit into 3 months, and that's it. And so I'll have a pretty heavy burn down at the end probably. Or the way I'm doing it is, okay, I've set out for a 60-day plan. I've got it all the things I think I'm going to be able to fit in 60 days, but I'm going to guarantee to do all of those things, whether it takes me 65, 70, 75 days. But I've got it boxed to just this work. So any new work is going to get punted, almost guaranteed to get punted out to the next iteration, which is fine. But it helps me make really quick, easy decisions. Like if I think of some new module in the game, I just go, backlog, right? No chance of it making it in this one. And I think that's really powerful too. You don't get bogged down and going, well, should I add it because it's so cool? None of that. Just nope, future iteration, which is fine. If the game is a success, as is with the first release, then why not pile on more things? Sure. All right, so a lot of other obvious things. Game loops, getting those hashed out. I did a lot of this stuff early on, but I didn't like rework it and rework it like some of these other columns where I was getting constant value. But it was important for getting stuff sorted into tasks and whatnot. The player progression, this one was really powerful because I thought of a lot of nuance, as the player moved through the game. It helped me kind of get the core loop and everything working. And even some of the end game stuff, win conditions, lose conditions. I ended up with no lose condition. Basically, you can just go. You're never going to die or stop. And that's what sort of changed it from like a Vampire Survivors like or a roguelite, is that basically you can lose your ship, but you can just keep going. You create a new ship. It's going to cost you a few resources, but you just keep going. So very useful. And then let's see, the oohs, ahs, and ohs. I really like these. I thought of them, and I think they're like a good design sort of exercise. Like, how many oohs do you have in your game where the player who's streaming, where they just go, ooh, that's cool, right? These are the really pleasant surprises, epic loot drops, finding a secret, um, solving a puzzle, or it's just basically figuring out something really cool or coming across something really cool. The awes are more like the sort of standard, oh, this is how this works. Oh, if I push a button, this happens. Oh, if I shoot an enemy with this type of missile, they die a lot faster. And so your game should have lots of awes in it. And it's basically the player's learning progression. And they should always be learning basically all along the game. And so it's kind of, and maybe even an interesting exercise to jot down at what points are they learning these things in the game, and are there any concerning points in the game where they get into a loop where they're not doing a lot of learning, and maybe spend some time there. I didn't do that, but it seems like a worthwhile exercise. But anyway, super valuable to do this. Um, it's kind of like a sanity check that you've got fun in your game. You've got lots of learning in your game. The O's are the painful lessons where, like, player touches a mine for the first time and gets blown up and dies. Oops, okay, that sucked. Don't do that again. And you want a number of these, it seems, in your game to sort of surprise the player, keep them on their toes. That not all lessons are going to be easy. And so I've got a few of those. And then the WTFs. This is, maybe you want some of this, maybe you don't, but generally I think you want to be looking for it, because these are the shocking moments where like a boss spawns and just one hits you and you're like, what, WTF, what just happened there? You don't want it to be too painful. It really depends on the style of game. Some other WTF moments, though, don't have to be as painful. They could be that the player was able to do something really cool, such as, like in this game, maybe they load up the ship filled with batteries, and then they send it out into the asteroid field, and then they detonate it, and it explodes magnificently. And that is like a, oh, WTF moment. I didn't know I could do that. And maybe it breaks the game, maybe it's pointless, but as a player, if you can explore the game and do some WTF things, that's definitely something you want to try to bake in. And it's great for streamers, right? Obviously. But at least a worthwhile exercise to think about. Do I have them? Do I need them? Do I want them? All right, so a lot of other things that help flesh out the design, but not necessarily anything I chewed on. The tutorial one was really good. When I wrote this one initially, I assumed I would need a tutorial just to explain things, but then as I wrote it all out, I started to think, well, maybe I could solve this with a certain UI component, so I don't need to do a tutorial. But I kept pushing, like, okay, this is all the things I need to teach the player. And that kind of brought out, well, what button are they going to press? What key are they going to press? E. Oh, if they're doing E for this one, what are they going to use for this one? Okay, Q. And then is that getting too complex? How is that going to look in the UI? And what ended up happening was I realized I'm not going to do a tutorial because I don't have time for it, really. But also, I was able to just solve a lot of this need for learning just by having a good UI. And so, really great exercise, even though I'm not going to have a tutorial system, at least not in this first release. The cut, we're going to talk about that, or we already did kind of. It's going to be a good exercise that I'm going to do next. And we're going to bring the project down from 120 to 60. Um, and then there's the other cut exercise. I should probably give them different names because there's two cuts. One is basically effort cut, how much effort is required to finish, and the other is the feature cut exercise, and that's kind of what this is needed. This is for, sorry. Exit strategies, I think this is a really good exercise. I probably didn't spend enough time on it, but I have one exit strategy, which is if the POC doesn't feel right, I can cut there. But I think that if you're doing a project, you want to have as many off ramps as you can. And like one might be, yeah, I do the POC, that's an off ramp. The second one might be, I'm going to give a playable demo at this point, and it's going to have all my mechanics in it. And if I give this to a few people and none of them show excitement or interest, and they don't, you're not getting that engagement that you want from them, that might be a checkpoint that you're just going to have to go, look, this isn't it. I got all my core mechanics. Something major is missing. Either I go back to the drawing board in the plan and try to think of what could save this project, or I just shelve it. Maybe a new project idea will come to me later. That's fine. I could shelve it. It's not going anywhere. And I've only spent a couple of weeks on a plan and a POC. Fine. Move on to the next thing. But you want to have those off ramps. Otherwise, you get stuck in trying to, okay, I got my POC, we didn't find the fun. I'm just going to keep grinding away until that fun shows up. And I feel like if you get to that point, more often than not, the fun is not going to show up. And you're just going to have just a bunch of junk piled on at that point. But who knows? That could just be me. All right. So that is the GDD. I thought it was overall, felt that it was super valuable. I feel like I have a pretty solid plan. I think I hashed out just tons of complexity. Things that were complex became very simple because I kept just working at things. So highly recommend it, especially for smaller iterations. I spent about a week on it, and I got the value I wanted out of it. And so from that plan, I put together the milestones. I can zoom out here. We've got about 13 or 14 milestones. First one is the POC, and we're going to put together some of the core components, get them working together, make sure everything feels good, make sure I can mine and shoot and fly all at the same time. So if I drill into the POC, you can see I've got tasks, got some estimations, and from that, we should have a video, and we'll include the go, no go, and talk about how the POC went, my estimations. And then from that, if it's a go, we'll do the rest of this. If it's a no go, we're just going to stop right here. We're going to probably plan a new project and see what's next. And I'll probably talk about that if I end up in a no go situation. But if it's a go, you can expect we'll have videos for most of these systems on a week-by-week basis. So we'll have the swarms and asteroids, interfaces, blueprints and modules. So in the game, you can purchase blueprints with credits, and from those blueprints, you can craft modules. So I can craft like a new engine of different tiers. And then with those modules created, I can install them on the ship or the base and give me different sort of features on the ship, I guess, like a battery or a new engine or new mining laser, things like that. So the player will get progressively better through upgrades. Then we'll have a HUD to show all of the status of all of those different modules. And you can see that this is thought through as systems. Like I'm going to have a blueprint system, then I'm going to have a module system. And then I have a save manager system that is going to start here. Because I need to save which blueprints you've unlocked, which modules you have. So we're going to start the save system here, but it might get cut. We're getting to that in a second. But I think at minimum, I'm going to create a save manager class where I'm going to save information for the session. And then later on, if I do a save system, it'll just reference the save manager state. So that should be easy enough. All right, then we got the HUD. Then we're going to be spawning some resources out of the asteroids. Then we have enemy units, which I've come up with some pretty fun enemy units. A lot of effort going to go into here, though. But that's where we ramp up the challenge, and that's important for like flow, right? We want the player to be challenged and to push their way out into those challenges organically, and then make sure that as they're pushing out, they're also getting higher level resources, which means they can get higher paydays, which means they can get more modules, right? So a nice little organic loop. Then we finally add the space background, and then here's our save system, which probably gets cut. Our high score system, and the neat thing about this one is that the player will be able to, the farther they go out, the bigger the hulls, the bigger the cargo hulls they'll have. So when they go back to HQ and they sell their hull, they'll get basically like 250,000 credits, and then once they get, let's say, past 200,000 credits, we'll unlock the high scoreboard. And so all hulls after that, they'll be able to submit to the high scoreboard. And so that allows some players who, are enjoying the game and grinding, they can grind out more S tier modules and then keep submitting higher and higher scores. And that should be fun, right? That's a nice little organic sort of end game thing to do. Encryption, this will probably get punted out into another project. Something I've been wanting to do with my Godot games, just to protect them a little bit, slow some bad guys down. And then polish. This one doesn't belong here, and I'm going to get rid of it. It's got like 10 days of effort in it. But what I'm going to do is, because I have a plan and I have a lot of confidence in that plan, I'm going to do all the polish with each feature along the way. So I'm going to go through here for like asteroids. I'm going to put all the polish right where I'm doing that work, and I'm going to trust that I've got such a good plan, I can do that, and I'm not going to waste any time on art. And I think this is made possible because I have a small iteration, right? Most things I was able to think through to the end. So I'm going to move out anything that I'm going to keep, and then anything that I can't do, that I'm going to punt, delete, or move to the backlog if I really want to do it, but later. So this will go away. Then we're going to release the game. We're going to do a retro on the whole thing, talk about the good, bad, and ugly of the plan, how it went, and what I might change going forward, like what parts of the plan might trim. And then we'll talk also about what's next, I would think, in this retrospective. And then we'll release all the videos all at once. So if you're watching this, most everything should be released or probably coming out day by day from this point forward. Okay, so that is my milestone. And again, I've got to get this down to 60 days. So we're going to see some cuts in here. So that'll just shorten it up. And okay, so that's pretty much everything except for the ChatGPT thing. So this all got kicked off because I got the idea to ask ChatGPT to try and describe me as an RPG character sheet. And it did, and it nailed it. And in reading this, I realized, okay, look, even ChatGPT can recognize some of my problems. Scope control. That's like this score should probably be lower, but it gave me a 14, but it said I also, once I get focused on something, I can get up to an 18. And this is my biggest problem, is that I basically go after massive uncontrollable scopes. And so I'm like, okay, how can I fix that? Well, smaller iterations, as we always preach, right? We're always saying, if you're a new dev, go after small projects, basically. And I've always said, if you haven't even released a 1 month project, what business do you have going after a 4-year project? The problem is, as new devs, you don't know that you're going after a 4-year project. You can almost just automatically assume it. If you're going after an RPG, 4-year project. If you're going after a survival, like probably a 2-year project, right? Anybody can make a quick POC of a vampire survivor. It's very simple to get going, but to make something that people want to buy and play is where all the content comes in, where you're coming up with new feature mechanics that take a lot of time to flesh out and balance and get right. It's just years. And so new devs won't know they're getting into it. But even as experienced devs, we find ourselves constantly getting into those situations. And it's just because we want to put a POC together and then we just can't let go of it. And we keep chasing it until finally the weight gets so much that we have to give up. So anyway, so this helped me just kind of get a slap in the face, and let's do something about it now. And this is what we're going to do about it. And then momentum, 13 to a 17. Yeah, this ties into scope. Basically, I come to a grinding halt if I don't have a really solid plan in place. But if I have a solid plan in place, I just will crush it because I can get into flow really fast when I'm confident with what I'm doing. Content generation, yeah, 12 could be even lower because I hate content, and it's just the overwhelming sheer amount of it that gets to me. I never want to start it. I never want to create 12 monsters that I need. I will only create one, and then I'll just play around with that one, for the duration of the project, because I don't want to commit to a bunch of content that I may not get to or use. You know what I mean? And so that, again, is just scope control. It always comes down to scope control. So anyways, really fun exercise. Highly recommend you do it. And now ChatGPT is looking at all your past context by default. So it knows a lot more about you. And here's my prompt, so check that out. I said RPG stats as a game developer, strengths and weaknesses. I have some passive abilities, which are spot on. Overthink trap is a debuff, 10% chance that I'll get stuck in a design loop. Absolutely. And that's what those constraints are for, and personal goals are for. And then I have a buff that if I am working on things that I know work well together and synergize well, that I can move really fast once I get into a flow state. So definitely recommend playing around with this. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think, may unlock some future potential here for me. So, all right. So look forward to seeing you in the next one. That's where we're going to cut the project up from 120 days to 60, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Shouldn't be too long. This will probably be one of my longer videos, so hopefully you bear with me. Cheers, bye.